Okay, so I have this thing on like manual now because I know that if I actually play with the settings and learn them, then I can get a better picture. So hopefully this isn't too underexposed, or let's see what that looks like. Oh, that's bad. Let's try like here, around there. Maybe that's better. I don't know. Um, yeah, so it's actually midnight right now, and I should be asleep because I have work tomorrow. But every once in a while, I kind of struggle with insomnia, and there's really no like rhyme or reason to it. It's really weird. I can go like weeks where I sleep pretty well, and nothing changes in my schedule or my activity level or what I eat or the amount of coffee that I drink or anything. And then suddenly I can just have like really bad sleep, and then it'll just start a cycle where for like a week or two I'm up really late, and no matter how early I try to go to sleep or how early I try to wake up to get myself tired, nothing seems to break me out of it that actually makes sense. Sometimes it'll just snap out of it and I'll go back to normal, but it's kind of taking a while this time. Past week I haven't been sleeping very well, and even when I do fall asleep I keep waking up. I've been having a lot of like weird anxiety dreams and anxiety nightmares that have been keeping me up, and then I'll try to fall back asleep, and then I'll be like really super restless for the whole night. And and the idea of like drinking more water lately hasn't been really helping because that's making me wake up a lot during the night, which normally wouldn't be a big deal, but because I have a hard time staying asleep and getting to sleep in general, it's not helping the case. So even when I wake up, I feel pretty restless. So it is midnight. It's 12:13. I'm sitting here watching, what is it? It's like the British cooking show or baking show. I don't know. I don't normally, what is it? Yeah, the Great British Baking Show. So we have cable, but we never watch it. I never watch cable. I always like have Netflix up or something, or I just like download movies or something. And so I usually just like flip through Netflix and find something interesting. And I love British shows, and anything with baking is a win. So it's got 5 stars. I'm only on the first episode, and the first episode is cake, so can't really lose out on that. But instead of just sitting here and watching Netflix until I pass out, I thought I'd actually do something a little bit more productive and talk to you guys again. I really enjoyed talking to you guys in the last, I think 2 vlogs ago, just sitting here and talking with you guys and updating you guys, so thought I'd do it again. And this time I actually got a message on Instagram that I thought was a really good question, and I don't normally get a lot of questions on Instagram or social media in general, but this one I got this morning, so I read it to you guys. It says, if you are powerlifting and you're not doing a meet, then why are you cutting? I noticed you said that you're weak lately in the gym, so what's the point of cutting if you can just bulk and get stronger? So I thought that was a good question because it does merit the question of why I would start powerlifting with a new coach and make that transition if I'm going to just cut and not really focus on strength right now. And it's kind of a loaded question. I could probably sit here and talk for like 2 hours, and because I have the tendency to rant, maybe that's what will actually happen. But I thought I would kind of break it down into like a few like stages of answering the question, I guess. And the first one is just kind of like a little bit of a backstory. So when I started this channel, I was in recovery from injuring my hip flexor. And during that time, it was super, super frustrating because I thought I was healed up, and then I started with a first coach, and then I got a little bit back into squatting, and my hip flexor would just flare up again, so I'd have to stop squatting, switch to a different program again, and like remix my program again and again and again, and it was super frustrating. That was months ago, like that was almost the end of last summer, beginning of last summer possibly. And I'm horrible with timetables and like timestamps and everything, and like the timelines of dates and everything like that. But I know it was during the summer, and it was frustrating. It was frustrating for me. It was frustrating for the coach that I had at the time, and it just wasn't healing up. So even though I was trying to focus on getting better and getting stronger, it wasn't really happening when I started this channel. So I never really went into full depth of the backstory behind that and what led me up to powerlifting. And the main reason is because I originally started lifting by, I was like 130 pounds, maybe 128 or something like that, but I was like the definition of skinny fat. And I guess you could argue that I'm pretty much still the definition of skinny fat, but hopefully I've gained a little bit of muscle since then. And that was June of 2015, I want to say, I think the beginning of June. What I did was I basically, I wasn't new to training. I wasn't new to all of that. When I was in high school, I was on all the bodybuilding forums and things like that. But I took a big break from it and struggled with a lot of other stuff that I won't really get into right now. And June of 2015 is when I discovered macros. Because before that, like the whole thing was clean eating and like low carb diets and stuff like that. So the idea of macros was like completely new to me. And I always followed a like percentage before that. I didn't really follow like specific grams. So when I read about percentages, or when I read about macros, if it fits your macros, it kind of like reinvigorated my interest into fitness again. So, and at the time I was kind of sick of just looking skinny fat and not looking athletic, even though I knew all this stuff about fitness and I knew all this stuff about training. I never really got back into applying it to my life. So I'm the type that once I learn something, I dive into it, I read all the articles, I look at all the scientific studies. I followed everyone, I followed all the podcasts, I listened to all the podcasts like nonstop and everything. And then I signed up for the gym again. So at that time, I believe it took like a month or so to drop from 130, just following like a vague split. I think I was on like 200 grams of carbs, never went below that. I went to like 1 gram of body weight per gram of protein. My fat was around like 50, maybe 47 or something, and I just stuck to those for like a month. But I started going to the gym. I think I signed up to like the YMCA, and it was like the definition of like fuck around-itis. Like, excuse my language, but that's the best way to explain it. It was mostly just going in, doing what felt good, trying a bunch of different exercises, but just feeling good about it. And I pretty quickly tightened up from there. Like what people would say, like toned up. And then from there is when I started to actually like drop my carbs and drop my macros and get into really seriously lifting, like following a push-pull split, getting into the compound lifts and everything like that. And that's when my physique really changed. I was really serious for about 12 weeks. And during those 12 weeks, I went from about 124 pounds, I believe, I dropped to 114. And it was about 12 weeks. And I stopped around my birthday because I planned to do that for until my birthday, and then I wanted to bulk up. And the reason why I wanted to bulk up is because by the time that I actually cut down to 114, I just looked skinny. Like, I didn't look athletic, I didn't look fit, I didn't look like I actually went to the gym. I just looked skinny. And that wasn't the look that I was going for. I was pretty happy with my body. It was honestly, I had like the easiest cut in history, and like the history of cuts. It was so easy. I never felt deprived. I never felt like it was a cut. I don't think I went below 1,700 calories the entire time, or at least very close to those starting macros that I mentioned earlier. And then, but by the time like I cut down and the holidays came around, I was like, well, I should think about bulking. I should think about actually getting, thicker legs and like the glutes and everything that was like so popular. So around those holidays, I decided to go on the bulk, and things just got out of control really fast. I didn't know about like reverse dieting really. I didn't really like look into that so much. I heard about it, but I only really kind of thought it was like something you did out of a competition. So I just kind of went out of control, and it wasn't that I didn't know what to do. It was just I had a hard time sticking to it, my diet, but I was still training consistently. I was training all the time. That never changed. But yeah, I went out of it, and then I thought, I'll get back to it next week and next week and next week. And then what ended up happening was I just gained too fast, and I know a lot of it was water weight, but it looked a lot more in the mirror. And of course, you're carrying a lot more on the scale, so I just saw it keep creeping up. And no matter what I did or what I seemed to go back to my macros before, the scale never went back down, and it was just super frustrating. And it was a cycle that I got caught up into, and I got back into. I struggled with binge eating after high school, and I noticed that I started to fall back into that cycle again. And that was a really, really dark place, and I didn't want anything to do with that. So I started to focus a bit more on strength. And why is it going in night mode? I hope that doesn't show up. But if the exposure just kind of went weird, I'm sorry about that. But yeah, so I ended up focusing more on strength after that, because I needed something else to be motivated by going into the gym. I didn't want to just focus on how I looked. I wanted to have something every time that I went to the gym to be excited about and to work at and to progress in. And at the time, the scale wasn't doing it for me. So what was working for me was hitting a PR, the numbers increasing, the strength increasing and stuff. And if I had built muscle from it, I'd been really happy. So that's when I started talking to some friends and made the transition into powerlifting, or the idea of powerlifting, or strength training instead. And that's when my hip flexor tore. I remember I went into squatting 135 pounds, and I was doing that pretty consistently, but I wasn't doing it very well. I was kind of just dive bombing, And that's part of the reason of why my hip flexor did what it did, or I'll get into more of that into another video too, because I'm talking about that with my coach now. But that's when I got injured, and that was just hell for me. I was already kind of going through a lot of other mental changes, and just the idea of my physique not being where I wanted to be, and struggling with my diet, and then my training just went to shit. And it wasn't hitting rock bottom. Thinking back to it now, obviously it wasn't that big of a deal. Injuries happen, especially in the sport. This is the struggle that we choose with the sport that we love. But at the time, it felt like the weight on my shoulders, no pun intended. So that's when things really spiraled out of control. I kept going through cut bulk cycles, and trying a bunch of different programs, and trying to see what was going to work for me and what wasn't going to work for me. And it just seemed like I was spinning in the same place. So after quite a while of that, and just maintaining my weight, I stopped tracking macros for a little bit. I tried intuitive eating. I tried just finding a program, sticking to it for as long as I can, and trying not to bounce around too much. Try not to go from one extreme of cutting to one extreme of bulking, and thinking that was gonna give me some consistency, because that's all I was really looking for. And a consistent path in one direction. Either you're gonna stick to bulking and be happy about it, or stick to cutting and be happy with it. And it just wasn't happening for me. So that's when I switched to intuitive eating for a little bit, and I got a bit of a better relationship with food again. And that was through me starting this channel. So you can kind of see a little bit of that, me going back and forth between, I'm powerlifting and I'm doing this and now I'm doing that, and these are my macros, and then I disappear for a bit, and then these are my macros now. That bit of weirdness and fluctuating and in my goals and stuff is this is the backstory to that, or the explanation for that. So now that I have this coach, now that I joined the team of Titanium Fitness, I told him about all of this, and the biggest thing that he saw with my training and with my lifts and everything was that my squat needed work. There's a reason why I got injured, and there's reasons that he can see clearly that we can work on, that we can fix. Same thing with my bench. Luckily, he says my deadlift is pretty spot on and perfect, but he wants me to switch to a sumo, because that would eventually make me a lot stronger. So right now what we're choosing is to focus on technique. We're choosing to get into the mechanics of each lift, so that way eventually I can work on strength, and eventually I can be a very strong power lifter and also be a very technical, accurate power lifter, you know, not just going in and only focusing on getting the weight up, but also just the specifics of each lift, which I really enjoy. I'm a bit of a research buff. I like the scientific explanations for everything, so getting into technique is another thing that I'm very passionate about, and I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to take the time to perfect my technique before I can go around and say like, oh, I can squat 200 pounds. It's like, that's great, but how well can you squat it? You know, how does it look? And so that's the plan. I'm focusing on technique right now. My macros really are not dropped to the point where I'm going to be starving or I'm weak in every lift or anything. My CNS is taxed right now from a multitude of different reasons, being sick, being dehydrated, things like that. But all in all, that's not where our goal is. Like, my goal is, the cats are going crazy. It's that time in the middle of the night where they just sprint around everywhere. But the goal is to work on technique and stuff like that, and a little bit of strength, or keeping the strength that I have at least. You know, when I went into deadlift 185 pounds, I was supposed to be able to lift that. It wasn't supposed to be a PR for me. So that's the plan. My camera is actually going to die, so I'm going to end it right there. If you made it this far, thank you. This kind of helped me. It's 12:30 right now, so maybe I can actually go and get some sleep. But again, thank you for watching. Thank you for making it this far if you have. Please give the video a thumbs up. I hope that answered some questions, or, you know, maybe you can relate to me. You know, let me know. If, you know, feel free to reach out or leave a comment below if you can relate to anything that I just said. And the idea is that you're not alone. And give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, please. That helps me. And yeah, good night, guys.